Committee of the whole meeting now. Item number 1.1, plastic bag bylaw, request from the Assistant Municipal Superintendent.
So basically, the plastic bag ban has come up yet again, and the engineering department was asked to look into this a little further and provide a recommendation. As per the recommendation of the engineering department, they are asking that we permit no plastic bags, period, and that we continue moving forward with this. He said that they still fly around, they get caught in the catch basins. It's still, decomposition creates methane, greenhouse gas, leachate, to name a few things that are bad, and they just said, let's just ban all of them. So there will be a resolution coming forward to revise the bylaw. If that's, yeah.
Any discussion on that?
What about the bylaw did we need to revise?
It needs to be a little bit more, I would say, user
Wasn't
friendly,
very
and it wasn't very clear.
And it basically indicated that we could use some portions of a recyclable bag. The only place that we would permit it, if council's of the opinion, is when you're in the grocery store and you have, say, a bag for fruits. You know how they have the clear little plastic bag?
Well, yeah, that
But the
was-
grocery bags, none of them will be allowed.
Right.
Whether we do.
So would the change be to the bylaw simply be to remove the definition of biodegradable stuff?
Correct.
That's been,
Because
if you look in the bylaw.
the rest of the bylaw, I thought,
Yep.
clearly indicated what
Well,
our
and
intent was.
The bylaw itself did indicate, no single-use plastic bags will be permitted, including biodegradable bags, but you had to kind of search through the bylaw to get your answer on
Yeah.
whether biodegradable
This
was okay or
makes it
not.
cleaner.
Isn't clear.
So this is going to clean it up, yeah.
So what about for the businesses that went out and bought?
Well, they can use up their inventory. I think that's
That's fair.
only fair. I don't think if they have a 6-year inventory that we drop in and see them in 2020, but I think, a legitimate amount of time would probably be,
Like, what's a legitimate amount of time?
6
though?
months, I think.
I think there was only one or two places in town.
I know of
to
one,
purchase.
yeah.
And I think you
So
may
So
have been
cool.
number two.
Sorry, what was that?
You may have been number two as it related to purchasing biodegradable bags?
Oh, I just had to supply them, but I just put them away.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Well,
we
be
can
careful,
make,
they'll disappear within a year.
I think what we can do is
They
make contact
disintegrate
with the
after
wine.
18 months, so.
Tell them,
So
yeah.
coming
Six-
into-
I would say 6 months, yeah.
So am I changing the coming into force date then?
We will
6 months?
specifically send them a letter stating that it'll be,
From
because
6
other
months
people
of
are
the
going to
date
go
of
by,
the
right?
passing of the bylaw third reading.
Yeah, we don't want to encourage people to go and buy a 6-month supply, but
So
if
this
you
is immediate,
have,
but we're going to permit that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you have to.
yeah.
Okay, anything else on that?
Nope, it's just.
Public
we're gonna
utility
present it.
rates, let's move along. What's happening?
The last water rate study was done in 2010, and we need to present to Public Utilities Board our request to increase the rates. This was brought forward at the last meeting. Proposed increase was significant. It was 18% for the water for anything over 20,000 gallons, and sewer was 4% for each of the 3 years. Service charge was extremely large. It was 46% year 1, 32% year 2, and 24% year 3. We do need to bring this forward for first reading so we can get it on the table
Yeah.
and provide it to Public Utilities Board, and it'll take approximately 6 months for us to get this processed.
Okay.
But we do need to start now. So it'll be
Okay.
a presentation for first reading.
All
of
right,
that
just
bylaw.
so, we will have a discussion about rate increases of 30%.
Of course.
Okay.
You just need to get this on the board.
Okay. Yeah, Councillor Zalinski.
So, our previous rates were, water was double what sewer was, right? And was there a reasoning behind why it was double? Or, because we're not increasing it by the same rate? Is it costing us less to run our wastewater?
It might be a matter too of our water breaks and our sewer breaks. We had a little more sewer than normal. We have kept our rates pretty fair with the water, so we were able to recover a little better than what we were with the sewer.
It's typically based on your history of expenditure.
That's what it's based on?
Typically, I mean, I don't know specifically for this study, but typically when rate studies are done and they're assessing additional costs or whatever, it's done based on the cost of your treatment and also your infrastructure repairs and operations historically in terms of how they assign rates. Typically, it costs you more money to run your water plant than your sewer plant.
Okay. It's just, I just find it weird because it's exactly half. It was exactly half.
And could be that they just decided to do that too if it usually goes.
And moving forward with this, just so you're aware, Public Utilities Board can turn around and say, this is too high or this is too little, and make us increase it even more. So we're hoping this is going to be more equitable. It was a Way to Go Consulting, assisted with it, yeah.
And just one more question regarding the service charges.
Yeah.
So we're basically, at the end of 3 years, our service charge, that's just for every single service, right?
Yep.
That's just the basic charge.
Correct.
We're going to be basically 250% of what we are right now. At the end of,
Pardon?
as of January 1st, 2019, our service charge from what it is right now is of $17.85 per quarter. It's going to be $42.47 per quarter?
Well, I think that's what we need to have a
Yeah.
discussion about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you're presenting to Public Utilities. If you recall, this was what was presented to council, and this was the recommendation moving forward. It could have been over a longer period of time. The problem with that being is by the time that time limit came about, it was already to increase and you were already following behind.
Sure, no, and that's fine, I'm fine with that. But what I'm saying is what goes into the service charge and what goes into the actual water? Like how is that?
I would have to clarify that with the Public Works Department.
Typically, it's fixed cost and variable costs.
Is it?
Typically, yeah, the service charge is driven by whatever the fixed cost is associated with you having to supply the infrastructure to operate it. And then your rates are
based on
driven
usage.
mostly by your operating costs, like, with a whole bunch of variables in there or whatever, but typically the service charge is meant to represent your fixed costs associated with having the infrastructure in place.
So we're going to be seeing 2.5 times, sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
I'll let you finish.
Okay, sorry. So basically, okay, no, I'll have to get clarification on that.
Councillor Gibb.
So when you go through executive summary, which is great, lots of information, 30% of our water is unaccounted for. So the way this reads to me is that that's our biggest issue. And that's what I brought up when Chris brought this forward to us, that we're going forward with a proposal to increase rates, but we don't necessarily have a plan to fix the problem. Now, I know LaRose is a big issue, and we're funding the whole deal to fix it up. I don't know what that, I hopefully will do something with some of this unaccounted for water, but if you ask those guys, they know the next 2 or 3 top streets that need to be addressed. And we're always sitting around saying, well, we need some sort of program to match the money, and we've got like over $1 million sitting in the gas tax fund, but we're not dealing with the issue. So to me, the issue is we have unaccounted for water. We have a company coming to do the roads. We should be looking at the next 2 streets on the list that need to be fixed and get them fixed. Because if you look at the last page, like, so now we're going to be the highest tax, we're going to have the highest school tax, and we're going to have the second highest water bills in the province. So we can sit around here and talk about it, but to me, this is the issue. We've identified the issue, and the solution is always, well, we'll go to the Public Utility Board, or we'll just raise taxes, or what are we doing?
Well,
right? We need to
okay.
fix the issue.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a plan B and a plan C, right? Like, once we're down the roads, we move on to another road. We have those plans in place, and so that's, I mean, that was the thing that stunned me the most in 2010 when I got elected. We were talking about 47% of the water going somewhere, not knowing where. And everybody's having to pay for that. And so, my guess is that with the roads getting fixed, that number should drop.
But what I'm saying is
We don't know.
we have an opportunity with a company coming to do one street, right? If you're building something, you know some big contractor's coming, you line them up to do something else.
Right.
Like the roof for the pool, right? So you have someone coming to do a really big job. We have 2 or 3 other jobs, probably not of that magnitude. We should be talking to them instead of sitting around waiting and saying, okay, we're hoping some program comes and we're going to use this money and double it. Because this is a big problem, right? This is a big issue. So I don't want to be sitting 4 years down the road and say, well, it's 47 and now we're like, we were bad and now we're not as bad. We need to get better.
I don't either. I mean, if that's what you see happen, I have nothing against that. I mean, why can't we have a discussion with the boys upstairs and see if they can't talk to those people?
They've been talking to us all along and telling us that our infrastructure renewal is what's prime and that we don't need to be looking at something new, that we really need to focus on this. But in answer to what you're saying, it's always been based on funding opportunities because we know that we can't afford to do these projects on our own. We were very, very, very fortunate in getting this LaRose Avenue But, yeah, there's always the plan in place, it was a matter of money. They have their listing of what's in priority. Bignell, I think, was right next in there, too.
And then Traeger is probably
Yeah.
after that, right?
No, it wasn't Reader, it was someone in the area.
Readers on there, to make sure.
My point is we have an opportunity, right?
I mean, it's worthy of having it brought forward at the next budget, right? To see what the next project looks like. You're not, I mean, the reality is they're going to break ground on rows this year. You're not going to, there's no way to smush in an additional work into this budget. It's just not there. The costs associated with it are way too significant. to
But I'm
really
not,
pick up
I'm
anymore.
not saying smushing the budget, I'm saying we have this gas tax that keeps growing and growing, and we don't,
It's
we're
gonna-
sitting
it's
around
gonna
waiting,
ballpark figure.
if we don't start dealing with these things now, it's gonna be next year, right? And then, and.
Do we have gas tax money left after this budget? I don't think
I
so.
don't know.
I'm pretty sure that this project taps every penny that we, pretty sure that's.
Do you know where we're at, ballpark on the gas tax?
Because we can't
Keep
utilize it for
spending
this
it,
project.
so, and it's been assigned for those capital projects.
Okay.
So when I say keep spending it, we've already earmarked it for certain things, which is probably part of this down the line.
Okay, Councilor Roy?
I was just wondering if, given this report and the real problem we have, that 60% of our water is, we're just putting it back in the river or under the ground. Moving forward, can a master plan be developed as to how they're going to reduce the loss of water in our system by, say, 50% in 3 years or 5 years? They have to have some sort of a plan that's in a long-term budgeting process to actually move it forward. Now, I don't know how or what the process, you just wait till the water bubbles up, or can you figure out, okay, this section is losing more than it's consuming in the households, and figure that out as to what areas you need to go at. I know there was, I believe it was 2013, a consultant study was done or something with regard to our roadways and underground infrastructures and stuff, and identified areas. Was waterworks and that part of it? And does that help us in terms of saying, well, this year we're going to do this section, next year we're going to, and we anticipate a reduction in the loss of water when we do
That's
it?
what we did 4 years ago. When we commissioned that study, it reviewed entirely all of the water and sewer infrastructure along with the road infrastructure. It identified where the greatest weaknesses and risks were. It identified the significant costs associated with that infrastructure renewal, and then it gave us a priority of which streets we should be doing first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars.
And that's your plan, and this is our first step in
This is
it.
step one. The issue was that we had all of about $150,000 in infrastructure reserve to deal with this kind of a problem. In generalities, it costs you about $1 million per block to renew an entire block. So we've managed to come up with $1 million and a touch more with the program that's coming forward. We're doing a 3-block stretch on the roads. Step number 2 is whatever the priority number 2 was in the plan.
And put money away for
I
it.
think
try
it
to
was
get funding.
honed, if
I know there was a
right.
couple areas
Yeah.
that
Hone
were.
a reader, but there is a list, and it is prioritized, and it is based on everything from scoping the sewer mains, reviewing with radio-assisted technology to listen to water mains and identify if you've got cavitation, which might indicate a leak. It's based on our review of the cast iron pipes that are located where, and where the plastic pipes located. It was an in-depth study. It cost us a lot of money. It gave us all of the tools to finally start making a step like this first one that we're going to do with LaRose here. That tool still exists. It will be, and I'm sure it is, continually reviewed by our engineering department to look at and go, okay, is priority number 2 still priority number 2? And I'm pretty sure that in our budget, I don't think we've got any money sitting around to kind of expand this project anywhere, Alan. I mean, I don't disagree
we
with
can
your-
use gas
I don't
tax,
disagree
right?
with your line of thinking. I'm just saying, we just went through the budget. I'm pretty sure we tapped every penny that we could for every project that we could, that we have resources available to actually do things on the ground in the construction season coming up. So I would hate to divert our resources that are already working hard, running off to try and expand something that we haven't even broken ground on yet. I'd rather see them focused on breaking ground first, and then, if we need to take a look, take a look. But this hasn't come about unplanned or unprepared for.
I'm not implying that. What I'm saying
It
is
kind of
that,
comes off that way.
And you're
well,
going,
I'm sorry, but what I'm saying is that we can't utilize gas tax money for this project, for LaRose, correct?
Yep.
We can't.
We can't, we cannot.
No.
Right.
But if there's a company coming, and there's other smaller projects, and I agree that department, they upstairs, they know the next 3 that gotta be done. You have a company here who could potentially do the work.
But they can't
Let's
do any
look at
work
it.
on water. You can't use gas tax money for water, sewer, or roads. So unless there's a way to shift gas tax money into another project, which we attempted to do during budget, to free up capital, which we did. We explored this over numerous meetings, moving capital from one reserve out so that we could gas tax fund that, so that we could use it. And all we did was manage to come up with enough money to handle the roads.
But that was a matching dollar situation, that's why we couldn't use gas. My understanding was
No,
you
it's
couldn't
not about,
match.
it's not about matching.
Okay.
It's about, you can't use gas taxes associated with roads. That's why the tax is collected.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't be used for that purpose. It has to be used for something
So,
other than that. Isn't that right, Randy?
And secondary, and just a quick blurb on this, and you may be aware of this, I've received an email today, and our whole plan may be changing because the province has come through, and there's a couple of communities that are affected by lead pipes, which is going to be us, and they're going to be asking for a priority, how we're going to deal with this moving forward. So future-wise, our plans may be changing as a result of this.
Because of lead pipes.
Because of lead pipes. What we've got to do is set up a program, test in certain areas to ensure that the water is safe, and look at an action plan for replacing those lead pipes. So that may change all our capital plan that you're referring to, that we've got set up for the next probably 10 years.
and the other thing is, let's keep in mind that there was a lot of pressure put on the new government that was elected on that 1% of the PST to go to infrastructure. And so, perhaps there might be a way we can tap in and get some dollars that way. Don't know yet, but I noticed Donald Trump said this morning, you just print more money. Well, that's not an option. So.
Just to be clear though, with the whole lead thing, there are water chemistries done at the tap every 3 months, I think, by a requirement by the Office of Drinking Water. So people don't need to worry that there are
No.
levels of lead in the.
No, yeah, this is not Flint, Michigan, folks.
No.
It's not
So
what we're
wait,
up
so,
against here.
sorry, I have a question back to the utility rate study. So what we're looking for is to be able to move this forward to the Public Utilities
Give first
Board.
reading to our bylaw that is approving this as presented, as was presented by Chris at the last meeting.
And what if we're not okay with it?
Then we can discuss it.
Then you can discuss it and we don't send it to
We need to
them.
get the bylaw on the books.
Sorry, my recommendation
No, that's
from the
okay.
last meeting was that we were moving forward with this, that's why it's on the table. If you change your mind, that's totally up to you guys.
I just didn't realize it was moving forward already.
Yep.
Like, I'm with Alan, I'm kind of having,
It's going to be
I'm
6
kind of
months,
having like
but
a
we
tough
need to
time
get it.
swallowing the fact that like if we move forward with this, not only are we going to be the highest tax community and the highest school tax community, but now we're going to have the highest water. And we just launched a Tri-Council website that boasts about how we have some of the cheapest utilities in the country, and so that's why you should come here. So I think that before we move this forward, we might want to take another step back and look at it. And
I agree.
We've talked about bringing managers and stuff to meetings before.
They
If we
did
have-
present this. at
No,
the
no,
last
I
meeting.
understand that, but I'm saying like maybe Chris is our manager that needs to come back again and have a conversation with us, because we were gonna have managers come in once a month, right? So maybe
Yep.
Chris is our manager who's coming in for the month of May, and we're gonna have to go back and hammer this out.
But I'm not asking that, if you gotta move it forward, you gotta move forward. You just need to have a plan around what we're doing.
But like, are we moving forward
But
with
that
this
plan does exist.
Right, like,
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not like we're, now what? Okay?
like, is there a way, I mean, I know that this is probably a lot of work, but I mean, is there a way he can kind of put together some rough, like, Plan Bs and Plan Cs, like, so that it's
Those were
not just
actually
big
presented at
sheets?
the last meeting. Maybe I would
Time
recommend,
Going back and
if
looking at
council
it?
wishes, to please review what was brought forward. And we can,
Chamber
yeah,
discussion.
No, it was a couple
It was a
meetings
couple
ago.
Two council meetings.
Okay.
the presentation
Chris
was
came.
We
there.
should.
He was here.
Okay.
I could, we can bring that back, please review the information, and we'll bring them to the next committee of the whole meeting.
Okay. Anything else? That was entertaining. All right, planning and development, 3.1, the variation.
Are we all in
application.
agreement that it's going forward or not?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. You want more information on it, is what I'm hearing.
That's what I hear.
I'm okay, I just want a plan going forward.
Okay, well,
like how we're
just-
gonna deal with that.
Okay, I don't want to be accused of ramming this thing through, so,
I'm okay with bringing it forward. I've got
okay,
some questions
we'll bring it
about
forward.
this.
Get it for first reading.
Otherwise,
So you
it's-
want it for first reading, but you'd still like to have him here?
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we need,
Okay, you're not giving the same message, is what
Yeah,
I'm getting at.
no, we're going to bring it forward for
Yeah.
first reading.
Correct.
And have him here at the meeting in case we have any questions for him, that we may, because we can alter it if we have to. We can alter it if we have to.
No, we can't. Once you give a first reading,
It's
that's
done.
what we're sending to
Okay,
Public
well
Utilities
then,
Board.
okay, but we can't defeat it and build a new bylaw.
I'm not arguing with me, you're not
Okay.
understanding. I'm just saying, if you give it first reading, it's gone, it's over. If you're not giving it first reading at this next meeting, if you want him to come in and chat about what we discussed at the last one and want to change this, you can't give it first reading.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
So then explain to me, I feel like I'm someone else here right now. Explain to me how a first reading is a done deal when there's 2 and 3
Because we're
readings.
going to be giving first reading, and if you recall what I said at the beginning is we're giving it first reading to get it on the table to send to Public Utilities Board. They will not get back to us for at least 6 months because they're going to be reviewing that recommendation. That's why we require first reading. We do not go to third reading until after public hearings and the whole kit and caboodle. So what I'm saying is I would not recommend, if this is not what you want, I would not recommend giving it first reading. If you believe the information he's going to provide, or that you have more questions from the last meeting, is going to change your minds on what you're presenting here, I would recommend that you have him come and present before you give any reading. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Where are we at then, folks? Right.
I agree with giving it first reading and moving it forward. If it's going to take 6 months for them to work on it, that gives us a 6-month window to figure out.
No, it doesn't.
No, it
Here's
doesn't.
what happens, right? So we send it to PUB. If in that period of time we decide we don't like this, we want to change something, then we got to phone PUB and say, hey, never mind, throw that thing in the garbage, we'll work on our new one.
Get you
Then we'll
Yeah.
we'll have to
Start all over.
appeal that one and then do a new first reading, and then we'll go back to PUB for another 6-month review, starting from day one. So at any point in time, yeah, we can make a change, but it cancels everything that PUB has been doing in the review, and then we start all over again. That's the process. So by reading it once, it goes to PUB for 6 months to review it and approve it. We can't approve reading 2 and 3 unless PUB approves. So if we read it tonight, it goes to PUB. If we decide to make changes 2 months down the road because we've gotten some information from Chris and we change this, we change that, we just wasted 2 months of PUB's time. Better to not send it right now so that we don't waste PUB's time and wait 2 months bantering back and forth over this and trying to decide whether or not we should spend this money to renew our infrastructure or not, and not renew the infrastructure or not collect at a rate that is sustainable for the renewal of the infrastructure, and then develop something that's, less, and then send it forward to PUB, who may review it and say, that's not a sustainable rate based on the decline of your infrastructure. We're telling you your rate needs to be here. That's why you get an expert to do your water rate study and provide you with some alternatives. Because you can't just decide to not jack up your water rates. PUB is there to say, if your water service if your rate of charge is not sustainable against your demand of maintenance and operation, then we're going to come in here and make sure that it does fit for you.
Right. Well, wasn't the problem initially that we're deficit budgeting on that area every year by a huge amount because of our wasted water? That's our problem. Well, because we're not charging enough for what we can deliver to the homes, is the argument, because we say, well, all the water we lose along the way is their problem.
A lot of them is your capital infrastructure for repairs. That's
The
where-
water rate study is based on what we provide to them for a plan to improve our infrastructure. So these rates reflect bringing your infrastructure up to snuff.
Real cost, yeah.
But they reflect solving the problem.
Yeah.
They don't reflect, we're
Just
not going to
providing
solve the
water.
problem and do nothing, we just want to charge more for water. This reflects it reflects the allocation of that resources specific to your water and sewer infrastructure for repair to get you up to snuff.
And that
That's
was
what this
based on
is.
that 2013 report, that this is where we think we need to get our work
And
done.
then in here it talks about a $5,000 portion per year allocated to reserves for the year 2017, 18, 19 for renewal of water infrastructure. That's where the money comes from to renew our infrastructure.
Okay, I guess then if we saw the map of the town and we were telling them that you were doing work here, this year, somewhere else next year, somewhere else next year, and the year after, and it'll all be done in X amount of
That's
years.
what this is just the
That's what
executive
this is
summary.
gonna
Yeah,
do.
this is just the executive summary from that report. That report is about this thick probably, which identifies exactly where all of the work is going to happen, or at least what's planned to happen.
Can I make this suggestion? Can I suggest that we put this off for 2 weeks and bring it back in 2 weeks? In the meantime, everyone who wants to have a look at that plan, it's upstairs in Sam's office. go and sit down and have a look at it. I think anybody who wants
It
to,
might be more beneficial to have Public Works come back
Come back.
and re-explain to everybody how this thing works and where it comes from and what it's based on. Everybody has to be comfortable with this. And so while I'm doing my best to answer it, I may be misspeaking a little bit here and there because I'm not a Public Works guy working for the town. I'm just telling you what I know based on the last 4 years and based on my experience working in the municipal sector elsewhere. So it might be useful to have engineering come back and be sitting here so that this discussion can happen and all the blanks can be filled in.
pardon me?
I would not recommend passing if you're not
No,
comfortable.
No,
better to delay it.
it's just
and
too much,
have this
too much
discussion
confusion.
So that everybody's clear and everybody can be here and ask the questions they need to ask.
Well, I agree with all of that, and the everybody I'm concerned about are the ones out there in our community, and this is where if we don't, we may know and we may read reports, but if we don't communicate it in some sort of summary form that here's a plan of what work we're going to do over the next number of years with the dollars allotted, then
Okay,
it's
let's table it for
harder
2
them
weeks,
to
bring it back.
accept it.
Okay. Planning it at all, 3.1, the variation application.
This is the same one we just dealt with.
You don't want to, because I thought I read somewhere today you wanted to not have it dealt with in the same evening.
Usually we deal with it in the council meeting right
Right,
after.
right when we had that public hearing is when you dealt with it right in
Oh,
the
okay.
council.
Oh, yeah, it's
So
right.
it's just to have the
So
discussion.
this is where if you have other questions that you want us to look into.
Okay. Anybody have any other concerns, questions on the variation order?
Oh, so then the variation order actually comes at the next council meeting?
Correct.
Next council meeting.
That kind of
Okay.
came up, and it was an actual
no,
good idea that was
it's
brought
not a
forward
bad
by
idea.
council at the last couple of hearings we had, and so that there was a chance to process. So moving forward, what we will be is explaining this to the applicant, that just, you're not going to get that night, just in case there's questions. So we won't be approving it right there. We'll delay a little bit if there's questions or if someone needs more, and we'll bring it forward at the next meeting.
Essentially, we're like a jury, right? So
Yep.
we should have time to like
Process.
deliberate, right?
Yeah.
It didn't look good.
Do we get lunch?
Yeah, good.
You don't want to look like
Stay
you're
with
rushing
Albert
through it.
sequester?
Yeah.
I mean, some things are like no-brainers, like, the Legion wants to put up a sign, like, probably
Yeah.
don't need, 2 weeks to deliberate, but I mean, sometimes.
But sometimes someone might think of
Exactly.
something later.
And if it's all the same all across the
Correct.
board, then it looks better.
So everyone's okay with
Was
it?
there any questions that you wanted us to look into, or are you okay with moving
I'm fine with it.
forward?
Let's let the guy get going. Okay. All right, 4.1, recycling. So, I get back from Europe on Saturday. I'm driving from the airport in Saskatoon to the Paul. I'm not even on the road like 40 minutes and my phone rings. What do you do about the garbage and the recycling? Here we go. So, when I got back into town on Monday, I decided I was going to have a chat with the lady at the recycling center. I had one issue on my mind. I just really seriously wanted to get on the table a discussion about getting those trailers moved from one side of the visitor information center all the way over to the other side. So it's not the first thing you see when you come into town is
It's
a
a
bunch of
second.
garbage recycling trailers.
It's a second.
So the lady at the recycling center suggested that, well, why don't you look at curb service? I said, well, that's a lot of extra gas. No, it would be less gas. Because the gas that they're spending going to the garbage dump all the time, taking people's garbage to the dump for them, would be eliminated because then the garbage would be left behind at the curb. I'm wondering if the people who sit on our recycling, on the recycling board from council might want to move that plan forward. And see if we couldn't have another look at curb service. It's what everybody seems to want. Everybody. And so, why don't we have a look at it? I mean, if it's going to be less cost.
Well, we've discussed this at the recycling center meetings for, I don't know, probably the last year we've been tossing the idea around. There are some, I don't want to say limitations, but challenges more specific to administration of how we get funded and the provision of fair service to our funders. In that, so I mean, it's pretty basic, right? We have 3 municipalities, we have trailers in all 3, and everybody's charged the same dollars per capita for recycling. But if we endeavor to provide curb service to the town of the Paw, and then we maintain trailer service at the RM and with OCN, it creates some inequality, or at least some perceived inequality, about what you're getting for your dollars, which doesn't mean it is a deal breaker. It just means that it's a little more complex, it requires a little more brokering of agreements and such. I mean, at this point, there is no agreement signed between the recycling center and the municipalities.
I wouldn't think so.
We develop a budget, we use the most recent census data, and we allocate requests for resources just like that. It's quick and it's easy. In terms of the actual mechanics of curbside, yeah, we can do curbside. It's just guys and trailers and trucks. That's all it is. And it would require a wholesale change of how they handle things at the recycling center, but it's totally doable. And it would change how things operate in town. So it's something that we can review if town council feels like that's really something we should undertake with a serious eye for execution, then we can do that and see where that leads us, for sure.
Okay. I just think it's worthwhile looking at, and especially if the recycling center manager thinks it's a good idea.
Yeah, no,
then-
we've discussed it a few times,
Yeah.
and we've identified as many weaknesses as we could to try and flush out whatever might not
Okay.
go right or might go wrong.
The other thing to understand is it needs to be a little small amount of site preparation for the north side of the Visitor Information Center before the trailers can get moved there. I think some gravel's required or something. I don't know if we can find out about that. Maybe we could supply that for them and get that done,
All
get
they
that
have to do is
unsightly
call our-
mess moved.
Yeah, they can just call a department and make arrangements.
Okay. Who are they?
Whoever is wanting this done, like wherever they want them. We're not going to just go tell them.
We'll have Marjorie Greenwood, the manager, contact Chris or Sam and just have a chat about where they're going to go and whether or not there's something needed there.
Okay.
Do they need to go, sorry, alluding to what you said. So now they're on one side, and then they're going to be on the other side. How much, like, why don't we just look at moving them completely from there?
I'm all for putting them all at one location. I really am. You know?
So what? I like that.
I would rather them not be at the Visitor Information Center at all, but if they are going to be there, I'd rather them not be welcome to the paw. Here's where we put our garbage.
Why don't we let the recycling board deal with the,
No, but it's good to hear I sit there, Margaret sits there, and we have some ideas of what we want to see, but and we've talked about that very thing. We talked about taking when it got real bad with the garbage and the trailers and stuff, we talked about just setting up a fenced compound and putting all of the trailers in there somewhere, like maybe over here or wherever, right? Somewhere that was going to accommodate with lights and with cameras, because it was getting absolutely ridiculous.
Crazy.
And it calmed down some after people got a little bit smarter and whatever, after the workers at the recycling center pulled out some addresses from some garbage bags and went and knocked on some doors, and they do a lot out there to try and make things better, and things did get a little better. We still ended up having to move some trailers. We had one down at,
Snacklands.
Towards
Bell.
Orange Street, Bell, that got moved.
oh, yeah, Elliott there, yeah.
It got pulled completely.
That was moved, the one at UCM was moved, the one at Snackland was moved.
So, they're not without issues, and we continue to grow. So, every time that the growing pains start again, then we try and shift gears and go to something new. So, at the upcoming meeting here, we can have a hard look at going to curbside, and we can probably, I don't know if we would, whatever, I'll fill you in, but I'm thinking that we would probably dry run an area of town for a week or two,
Yeah.
and see what that tells us about our own needs for infrastructure and how we handle it from a scheduling standpoint and stuff like that, and see how it goes.
I can't help but think that if people are using the recycling trailers as a dump, and now we're going to have curb service, how silly they're going to look with their stuff sitting outside, not being picked up. I think it'll be a quick learning lesson, very quick learning lesson.
We've done it before, so it's not...
Okay, well...
Sorry,
yeah.
just one thing to add. I don't know if it's still in effect this year, but I know last year, Recycle Everywhere was really into trying to promote more like home recycling and stuff like that. So they had a program where they were actually giving out free blue bins.
Yeah.
So it might be something that Margie wants to look into, just to check and see if we switch to
It's going to be set up at the
curbside.
trade show. She's got Recycle Everywhere gear, I think, coming for it.
Perfect.
Nice.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
But I just thought maybe if she mentioned that they were looking at doing curbside, if they still
Yeah,
had bins
I'll,
lying around, they might forward them.
We'll
and-
make sure that we bring that up at the next board meeting, curbside, whether or not they'll throw some money at some infrastructure for that.
Recycling Central trade show, as Andrew said, I'm going to be sitting there all day Friday. Just one day only. And
Good.
Margie has a list of quite a few items that will be there and information.
Excellent. All right, anything else on that? 4.2, payroll and accounts.
Recommend a resolution for pay period 8 and 9 in the amount of $219,815.38, and also resolution for checks in the amount of $310,129.53. You'll see there's a very large check to Municipal Trading Company, and that is for our insurance premiums for all the town properties and buildings. And there's also a couple of bigger ones, Stitco, and that's just our regular heating, and also for the purchase of the fire truck. Just pointing out some of the larger ones.
Yep. Okay, 4.3, Community Futures Greenstone.
Once again, they'll be having their joint council meeting on Thursday, May 19th at 5:30 at the Legion Hall in Cranberry Portage. If anybody is wanting to go, please let us know. We'll pass a resolution and let them know.
The meeting's before next.
Yeah. Okay, is anybody?
Yeah,
let us
I'm
know.
unable to go.
We're moving, sorry.
It's a worthwhile event, folks.
Yeah, Chad and I and Margaret, and I think, Brian, were you there last year?
No, I couldn't make it
Yeah,
at
just the
the
three of us?
last minute.
Yeah, the three of us went last year, it was okay.
I wouldn't mind.
You were gonna go, Brian?
It's nice to
I wouldn't
find out
mind
what the
going.
other communities
I didn't get there last year,
Yeah,
so it'd be
it's
interesting to go
successful
once.
It's a good meal.
Meet with them.
Best meatballs ever.
Yes, no?
Just say.
I
Did we
gotta
have
check out my
meatballs last
calendar.
year? I don't know, I was pregnant, it was all good.
It was super good food.
It's like,
It
can I
was
have a plate?
ridiculously good.
And I want a prize.
Homemade by,
Snack for the road.
I was kinda on the fence, but maybe I'll go, I don't know.
You
You
forgot
might
about
win a
the
prize
meatballs?
this
Your
time.
resolution.
So how many? 3 of yous? And if
Yeah,
you
let's
can
see.
confirm in the
say
next.
3.
Yeah, put 3 and
Yeah, put me down.
Okay.
Okay, 4.4, Boreal Forest Declaration of Common Values. Holy moly.
So we had a presentation at the last meeting from Tim Johnson and Chris Smith, and basically, if council is of the opinion, we would move forward with the Declaration of Common Values for the sustainable development of the Boreal and Northern Manitoba. Has anybody looked through the information provided?
Yep.
I don't see there being an issue with.
Well, the only issue I have, is this the same one you're talking about, the email? Yeah, I mean, I got an email today saying, oh, the pause signed on. Well, no. I simply told that guy, I forget his name, Norman, I think it is.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I don't see the town of the Paw on that long list of northern communities. Don't leave us behind.
We won't be if we sign this, but if we don't, we aren't. So,
So there's some issues.
Well, I don't know about issues, but I mean, this came up at, I work in the forestry department for Tolko, and, Tolko attended, like there were representatives there, the general manager and the woods manager were at the meeting on October 13th, 14th. They're not on the list as having been there. There's a whole bunch of people that are not on the list. I don't know, some of this stuff to me doesn't read like it's very professional, and I'd prefer to have this, as a town councillor, I'd prefer to have a little bit of input from the experts that deal with the natural resource and with a lot of the communities on the landscape when we're dealing with forestry issues, to hear some input from them, if they could review this and get back to us. I mean, they were at the meeting, but when I showed this to the woods manager, he's like, I've never seen that before in that format. In reviewing it, seems, unobtrusive and in line with how we think these days about how things work. But I don't know. Our town is driven by the forestry resource. It's a major employer. To me, it would make sense as a council to run this out to the Woodlands Department out there at the very least, and maybe the site manager, and say, hey, you guys were participatory to these meetings. Can we get a little bit of feedback on how you feel about this, and make sure that we're all in line and towing things in the same direction.
I don't want to give the impression that it's not a good thing. When you live in the middle of the boreal forest, you got to learn how to deal with it. And some of it's got to go for fuel, and some of it's got to be safe. And so, got to that lovely little balance that we're talking about. So, if we can find out this information that Andrew speaks of in a timely fashion and move forward with this, I just don't want to be left in the dark again.
yep.
I also think it would be beneficial to maybe talk to some of our neighbors, especially our immediate neighbors, the RM and OCN.
Snow Lake is another one I'd recommend, because
Snow
they were
Lake.
going through this too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They had
It
some
would be
very
nice to talk to
concerns.
some of our pretty close neighbors here, just to get some of their thoughts and feedback on it. I know when we had done the when they had done the presentation, I had asked if any bands had signed on, and they said that there are bands that are looking at it, and I just want to make sure that there isn't any issue with any of the surrounding communities. They're our neighbors, and we do business with them, and
Yeah.
it'd be nice to know what some of their thoughts are.
I completely agree.
The other thing that I was a little confused about was some of the literature indicates that it's driven by the province, and like by conservation water stewardship, and it doesn't come off as reading like a government document to me.
No.
It comes off, and I know that this initiative is funded, or it's a little confusing, but I know that Pew Trust is the organization that is driving this to some extent, and that's great, but I don't know much about Pew Trust and what their motives really are and where they come from. I understand them to be a conservation organization based out of the States, I believe, or something like that.
I think so.
So I would just like to know a little bit more about it, especially considering that our lifeblood is tied to the boreal forest in all ways, and not just from a harvesting timber standpoint, but from a sustainably managed resource standpoint. I would want to make sure that, in fact, what we're signing on to adequately captures that goal, and that it doesn't come off as offensive to the biggest employer in our community somehow. So,
I wasn't too pleased myself with us not being included. Like, I was at that meeting, I spoke at that meeting. I believe Councillor Rock was at that meeting as well. So, my ears get perked when we're not included in something that we were involved in, so. Okay. 4.5, Legion's annual cemetery memorial service.
Yeah, what they've requested is some barricades for the front parking lot, in which our departments would have no problem with. However, they're looking at a different parade route than is normally what I'm able to approve under the authority of policy 809, so this comes back to council.
How is that even possible?
I thought we just said that you could approve parades, but not this one.
I can approve 2 of them. We have
just
certain
routes.
routes, and this is different than their route.
Well, why don't we let you decide if there's like 20 different routes you can say yes or no?
You can make me traffic queen?
Well,
Parade queens.
Just to keep things
Parade queen.
yeah, you can learn how to do this. It'll be easy.
It's mandatory that.
Does anybody
some vehicle.
have an issue with,
No, let's tell them they can have their parade and their barricades too.
and
They want town
and
barricades for
parade
the
routes
parking lot.
won't ever come up again.
Do you want the policy changed?
Yes.
Please.
I didn't know
We're
we
still gonna
had.
have to pass a resolution on this.
Yeah, do you want the policy change? That might be a better
It
question.
ends up in my face anyway. Regardless, I either have to present it here, or it's good.
I don't have a problem with changing the policy. I mean, if there's a problem with the parade route, you're going to identify it and deal with it. It doesn't need to come to
Generally, what
us.
we do is we run it by the other departments anyway.
And we'll just have to say it's Randy's fault if something doesn't go well.
Pretty much.
And they all have to put approval into the RCMP, so if there really was ever an issue with the parade route, the
Okay.
RCMP would.
Granted, it's still gonna have to be a resolution because their policy won't change.
No, that's fine.
Well,
I bring the policy forward that same night, or you want to review
I'm just
it?
reading the policy, and it refers to the 2, parade route 1 or 2, and that sort of stuff. If a different route is requested, a map will need to be provided to the chief. Oh, okay, it's just a map, but
Yep.
you don't get to,
No.
the first part of the policy then isn't truly
All it
accurate.
says is that if it's not parade route 1 or 2, they have to provide a map, and then it can be,
And then it
and
goes to
it
council.
provided to the CAO for approval.
These have always gone through council for the simple fact of.
But it says, it's in the procedure, the 3rd paragraph says, or what I think is, it says if a different route is requested, a map will need to be provided to the CAO for approval. That means you get to
Always come
approve
here.
it.
They've always been brought up here, though.
Yep, always.
Don't bring it
So the
anymore.
policy doesn't need to be changed.
Then we'll just leave it and we'll.
Your procedure needs to
Yeah,
be, you
they-
need to start using the procedure that we have empowered to you.
You were already
Yay.
playing, so you didn't even know
Parade
it.
Pumbaa.
Parade marshal.
Brian?
The first page of the policy clearly gives you the authority. It's one of those, it gets a little bit confusing when they try to clarify it, but
4.6, 2016 June district meeting.
This is the one for all of council. This isn't the Mayor Reeve CAO one. This is the district meeting. Last year, if you recall, we hosted it. This year, it is in Snow Lake.
Yeah.
So anybody that's wanting to go, we would pass a resolution. I think the resolutions we talked about bringing forward are already on the table at AMM.
Okay.
Hang on, I gotta check my calendar. That's convocation week, so it's like crazy. Not so crazy. June, what's the date? 13th?
Wednesday's here.
I can do that. No, I can't. I can't do that.
It's all day.
This is a Monday.
Yeah. No, I can't. It's a couple hours I could go in the morning. But others can go.
Do we have time before we need to, can we let you know, like, at the next meeting?
Yeah.
People want to go, is that okay?
We'll just pass a resolution anyway to say up to 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd
June
like to go,
6th,
but-
my pre-registration is June 6th.
Okay, so yeah, everybody let them know.
So just do a resolution for 4,
Yeah.
and then we'll do meetings after.
And before we move on anymore, further on this, I never gave you a chance during the council meeting to speak if anything going on that you wanted to report to us.
no.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Just haven't seen you in a while, so it's, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's not really much going on in Hillsborough, so.
All right, let's move this in camera.
We have one more item.
Where is that?
4.7 outdoor rink.
Oh, Councillor Gibb.
So this is just a discussion question.
Uh-huh.
As was brought up in the council meeting, the fencing by Wallace & Wallace is going to be provided at $22,000 less than what I guess we allocated from the BIPOL funding for it. And minor hockey has some significant funds, I think in the area of $25,000. And to do the base is roughly, the budget's about $55,000. So if everyone was in favor, we could, before we, I guess, send that back to BIPOL, I'm not quite sure how that works, but maybe approach minor hockey and see if they're interested in partnering and getting that next piece of the outdoor rink done.
What's the next piece of the outdoor rink?
The
Concrete?
base.
Concrete, yeah. Base is there, concrete
Oh,
regrade.
yeah, concrete base.
Very tantalizing.
Are we able to do that through the BIPOL?
Yeah, this was what that
Oh,
was
yeah.
basically designed
yeah.
for. We had already budgeted that BIPOL money to be used for recreation purposes.
Yeah, it fits perfectly, actually. That's,
What is your commission's opinion on this?
I have to approach them. I thought
Okay.
I'd approach you guys first and then talk to the commission.
Yeah, I think it wasn't this moving forward, Alan, please correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't this to be done in the next year anyway?
This wasn't part of the,
No?
it's
No,
not
it's
part
not
of the
part of the
five-year
plan.
KRC plan.
Just
Okay.
the original money for the
For the
base
base.
was in the plan, and everything else was supposed to come from.
But of all the other groups, minor hockey has stepped up with money to put into the project. So I think it's, I'm not saying hold it out there forever, but at least take.
so let's make
4
that,
weeks to
like,
explore it.
we would endorse that line of thinking? That's what you're looking for? Sounds
Yeah,
like
and
it?
then it's before we go and start talking to minor hockey and KRC and see whether they're interested.
Okay. How do we all feel about that?
I just wonder how that integrates into their plan, their 5-year plan or whatever their annual plan is for infrastructure renewal, right? We had
Yeah.
them do a big plan. We said we want you to stick to the plan. So they've got some things earmarked, and, I mean, maybe they have the rink concrete in there somewhere, and I'm fine with changes being made or whatever, but I would hate to make them feel like us then just go ahead and say, oh, this
Yeah,
next
by the way,
plan,
we're doing
now we
this.
do that.
Yeah.
And they go, well, geez, we just worked on this big plan, and now we're supposed to be doing this, and now what are we supposed to do? So you give us this money, but we don't have
I know.
resources to do the concrete allocated, so we look like the jerks on this whole thing, and you guys come off, smelling like roses, so. And if there are elements of capital in their plan upcoming this summer, there's no guarantee that their tender for the first job is gonna come in under or on, it may come in over, and then they're gonna require additional resources, right? So, I totally get where you're coming from, and it's great to see a price come in on a project less than what we budgeted for.
Yeah.
But, it'd be great to have the conversation with KRC and say, look, does this make sense or not? If it
When's
does
the
make
next
sense.
So I'll check on the date of the next
Yeah, I just
meeting.
want
Maybe
to,
some other people want to go. It's not part of their 5-year plan.
it's not at
It
all.
wasn't, it was only the.
Never gonna
it was
concrete
never
down?
on.
Not from the money that we
And
were
then
giving
on
them
the
for the
plus
5-year plan.
side, last year's playground equipment that they had budgeted $25,000 for was covered by a Moffett grant in Rotary, which is now
Right.
being installed at Rotary Park.
Yeah.
Two have already been done.
Lots of kids playing on it too.
Yeah.
Lots of kids.
Holy
So that's
cow,
the
I drove by there the other
25,000
day,
off
there
of
was
their.
25
Anyway.
kids on that thing.
That's great news, totally.
Right.
So, I mean, happy to hear that we should take it, or to suggest we should take it to KRC and see what do you want to do with this.
Yeah, maybe, they might have another plan besides concrete, but, you know, if we have an extra 22, we can look at for something, because,
I think, yeah, talk to KRC first.
Get their priority
okay,
list.
you know where to go on it then.
So I'm okay to talk with?
Yeah. Okay, and now we can go in camera.
Be it resolved that we now do move ourselves into the in-camera portion of the committee of the whole with Mayor Scott in the chair to discuss matters requiring our attention. Go Raptors! I got a text in the middle of the meeting, hurry up, Jarrett's got a game 4 to watch.